What's up, everybody? It's Clark here for the BOS Sports Podcast. Absolutely reeling after the Atlanta Hawks lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight, 109-2. The Atlanta Hawks are now on a 4-game losing streak and have lost 6 of the last 10 games. And coming in tonight, look like a completely different team the last time we saw them face Minnesota Timberwolves back on December 23rd, a game which the Atlanta Hawks won 117-104. As the Hawks were without Trae Young tonight due to hamstring tightness, he played through that Saturday night, but on a first game of a back-to-back with tomorrow's game versus the Rockets, a makeup game on TNT, a national game, he sat out tonight. Larry Nance Jr., he as well was out after re-aggravating his right hand, the hand he had surgery on to repair his broken hand. He came back a bit early, it felt like. Broken hands are usually 6 weeks. He came back 4 weeks, re-aggravated that. Hopefully that is not a long-term problem for Larry Nance Jr. Dyson Daniels as well. He was out with left ankle soreness, a newly reported injury. Jalen Johnson as well. He is still out for Atlanta Hawks. No update on Jalen Johnson yet. We'll get into that more later in this episode. So Bogdanovic, he did not play as well. There's no injury report on him. He was not listed on the injury report. He was a DNP. We'll await to hear with the injury report tomorrow at 1 p.m., the 1 p.m. deadline for the back-to-back game versus the Houston Rockets. Tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m., State Farm Arena. That game was iced out originally a couple weeks ago. So we'll wait to hear the status on Bogdanovic tomorrow, whether or not that was an injury, potentially a different situation. We'll explore those possibilities as well later in this episode. So recapping the game some. DeAndre Hunter, he had a career high and a game high of 35 points with 12 for 21 shooting from the field, 57.1%, 4 for 6 from three-point land, 7 for 8 from free throws, 87.5% there for the free-throw line. Zach Rieseshay in his first game back, he had 11 points, nice day, although he had a poor shooting performance with 4 for 13 shooting from the field, 30.8%. He had as well 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, so he's very active today. 11 points, I feel like it was a nice game after coming back from the hip concerns. Keaton Wallace as well, he was called up today for Atlanta Hawks. He had 13 points, playing in a back-to-back out of the G League as the G League Skyhawks had a game yesterday. Mo Gay, he also came out for the Skyhawks, called up from the G League. He had 4 points, 4 rebounds, 18 minutes, 49 seconds, 2 for 9 shooting from field. Very active. He looked much better than last time we saw him in November, early November. When we saw him in early November. And I felt like his outing today looked much better than his field goal percentage suggested, going 2 for 9. Good for 22.2%. 0 for 6 from three-point land. He was really trying to hit a three-point shot there. We see him as well. He participated in three-point shooting contests and the Hawks open practice. So we know Mo Gay can shoot, and he'll hit that shot going forward. He had 2 steals as well. Onyeka Okongwu, he had a monster double-double, 10 points, 15 rebounds, 6 offensive rebounds, 5 for 7 shooting from field, 71.4%, 1 steal and 1 block. Nice day for Clint Capella in just over 21 minutes. As Onyeka Okongwu, he started again with 7 points, 7 rebounds on a day, 2 for 9 shooting from field, 22.2%, and 26 minutes, 47 seconds. So we see kind of the woes of the starting center. Starting at the center position in the NBA isn't that easy, and sometimes we get a little bit hard on Clint Capella, and maybe for good reason. We'll explore possibilities of potentially trading Clint Capella at this trade deadline later in this episode. As well, we'll also talk a little bit about the Atlanta Braves and their offseason so far. Of course, they signed Jurickson Profar last week, and we hope they continue the signing and free agent signing with some relief pitchers. All to come in today's 42nd episode of the BOS Sports Podcast. So, we also saw Dominic Barlow come up from the G League Skyhawks and have 8 minutes, 30 seconds of play, 2 rebounds. So, a bit of a slow day for Dom Barlow. For the Wolves, Anthony Edwards, he had 23 points, Timberwolves high, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 6 for 20 shooting from field. Julius Randle, he had 20 points, 7 for 17 shooting from field, 41.2%. 3 for 8 shooting from three-point land, 37.5%. 8 rebounds, 5 turnovers. As the Atlanta Hawks, they were very active on defense. They gave very nice effort there in that game. As noted on the broadcast, Rudy Gobert, he had a nice double-double with 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 of them offensive, 7 for 9 shooting from field, 77.8%. All dunks for Rudy Gobert, 18 points. Nice double-double on the day. Naz Reid, he had a nice 15-point day, 6 for 9 shooting from field, 66.7%. As well, 3 for 5 from three-point land, 60% from three-point land. There's a little bit of injury concern for Naz Reid there in the fourth quarter, but he came back and finished the game, so hopefully he's okay. So, of course, in this podcast, we look at three key team stats, whether or not basketball team wins the game. That, of course, is field goal percentage. In today's contest, that was 39.9 to 39.9% even, as the Hawks clamped down there in the fourth quarter and gave nice defensive effort. As prior to that, in the first half, the Hawks were at a little bit of disadvantage. In the first quarter, they're at very much a disadvantage, as we'll get to in just a couple minutes, on the field goal percentage. From three-point land, the Hawks were outshot slightly by a small margin, 30 to 27.9% from three-point land. The Wolves won the rebounding margin, so they won 2 out of 3 of those stat categories, as they also won the turnover battle, 16 to 21, and the rebounding battle, 60 to 59. That narrowed up as well, as that was a wider margin earlier in the game. So for shooting was a problem for both the Hawks and the Timberwolves, as in the NBA, you usually like to see your team shoot over 40% from field. And both shot just slightly below that. And that was characterized a little bit at the start of this Hawks-Timberwolves game, as there's no score in the first 2 minutes. The first score happened at the 9-minute, 59-second mark when Julius Randle, he was fouled, and he got the first points of the game as he hit 2. He got 2 of his 20 points right there at the free throw line. Nice 3 for 3 day shooting from the free throw line for Julius Randle. He's well had 1 steal on the day. So the Hawks, they got their first basket with Reza Shea hook shot, 2 of his 11 points there at the 9-minute and 29-second mark. Julius Randle, he had a 3-point shot later at the 8-minute, 33-second mark, as the Wolves got off to a quick 9-2 lead there early in the first quarter. It was mostly Wolves all day here. Mike Conley, he had a layup there at the 7-minute, 44-second mark. Wolves up 11-2. Timeout Hawks. DeAndre Hunter, he then entered the game. And that would be key point, of course, having the Hawks in game high at 35 points. But the Wolves kept pouring it on. Seconds later, Anthony Edwards, he had a layup off a Rudy Gobert screen. 13-2 Wolves, as Wolves were on a 9-0 run after the Hawks evened up 2-2 after the Julius Randle free throws to start the game. And so, of course, that started at 9-minute, 25-second mark with the Reza Shea hook. So Rudy Gobert, he was fouled at 6-minute, 18-second mark. He's fouled, hit both his free throws, putting the Wolves up 15-7. Another key point here is Mo Gay entered the game. And he immediately got an offensive rebound and put back. Nice play from Mo Gay today. We're going to pause really quick for some station identification. So later in this episode, I also want to mention we're going to have a little bit a recap from Saturday night's game. I went to that game, got a few video clips, going to do a bit of highlights and analysis there from that game. There was not very many highlights there for the Hawks. And of course, sitting on one end of the court, I only got to see Hawks scoring on my end for one half, the first half. We'll get into that. So back to this Timberwolves-Hawks game. Naz Reid at the 4-minute, 19-second mark. He had a 3-point shot, keeping the Wolves at a nice 7-point advantage, 18-11 at that point. Pete Krejci, he had a dunk there on the other end. 18-13, Wolves up by 5. At the 3-minute and 24-second mark, Mo Gay, he had a nice play, getting a flush, a highlight reel dunk off a Clint Capella dish in the lane. Mo Gay, aforementioned, it looks like he's been putting in serious work in the weight room. And much more effective in the box-out game, as characterized by his 4 rebounds, one of them offensive, 2 steals as well, nice defensive effort, only 1 personal foul. So he's really developing. It looked like, as aforementioned, he put in some serious work in the weight room. As when we saw him in November, it's a much different story with Mo Gay in the box-out game and how he looked. So Clint Capella there at 2-minute 23 mark, not to be outdone by Mo Gay. He had a nice dunk, but Naz Reid, he had the answer for the Timberwolves with a 3 on the other end, putting them back up by 10 points, 27-17 Wolves. Next basket did not happen for nearly 2 more minutes, and that would be a theme today. There would be many intervals with no field goal or no score from both teams. Both teams struggled from free throw, the field goal, that is. Next basket in this game would be with the Rudy Gobert dunk at the 44-second mark of the first quarter. Wolves 28-17. 29-17. No, 28-17. Harrison Matthews, he had a 3-point shot on the other end around the 33-second mark, putting the score 28-20, Wolves over Hawks there. 33 seconds left in the first quarter. The final score of the first quarter would happen after... Oh, that would be the final score of the first quarter, as Keaton Wallace and Minot of the Wolves would both miss shots. So the Hawks, they had a tough day first quarter shooting. 29.6% in the first quarter. 18.2% from three-point land for the Atlanta Hawks in the first quarter. The Wolves were outdoing that, but not by a very great margin or great performance by any standard, with 36% shooting from the field for the Wolves, 26.7% from three-point land. The Wolves were handily winning the rebounding margin at that point, 21-14, 7-6 offensive rebounds, and as well, they had one more turnover than the Hawks in the first quarter, 43 turnovers in the first quarter. So the second quarter, it opened with a DeAndre Hunter and 1 over Rudy Gobert, 23-23 Wolves, 5-point lead around the 11-minute 45-second mark. Naz Reid, he answered back seconds later, around the 11-minute 35-second mark, with a lay-in 30-23 Wolves. 11-minute 21-second mark, DeAndre Hunter, he had a 3, 30-26 Wolves. Rob Dillingham, jumper, 11-minute 9-second mark, 32-26 Wolves. Second half had a lot of offensive action early, but that would cool off a bit as Rob Dillingham, he had a 3-point shot, 10-minute 42-second mark. Keaton Wallace jumper, 10-minute 21-second mark, 35-28 Wolves. But aforementioned, a lot of 2 minutes without scores. That would happen as Naz Reid would score at the 8-minute and 9-second mark, nearly 2 minutes later. And that would finally push the total, the two teams up, and the Wolves to 37-28. Mo Gay, he returns for the Hawks at the 8-minute, 8-second mark. David Roddy, he had a layup, putting the Hawks deficit back to 7. 37-30 Wolves at the 7-minute, 32-second mark of the second quarter. Clint Capella had a nice dunk as well, seconds later. 37-32 Wolves. Naz Reid, he had a 3-point shot at the 6-minute, 44-second. One of his 3 3-pointers on the day. 40-32 Wolves. His 13th point already, as Dominique Wilkins reported in the broadcast. Zachary Ricochet, he hit one of his 2 3-point shots at the 6-minute, 8-second mark, as the Wolves led 40-35 at that point. Hawks would not get another score for another 2 minutes. Aforementioned, that would be a theme in this game. And unfortunately, that happened again the Hawks way. As Onyeka Okongwu, he had scored at the 3-minute, 31-second mark. And shortly after, him and Rudy Gobert got into, that was not a score. 3 minute, 31 second mark after a Wolves score, him and Rudy Gobert got in a confrontation. Shortly before that, Julius Randle, he hit a jumper. Anthony Edwards, he had a three. Jaden McDaniels, he had a jumper. Anthony Edwards hit free throws. Rudy Gobert hit hook as they're on a nice run, going up 51-35 over the Hawks, 11-0 run since Zachary Rizzet's 3-point make at the 6 minute and 8 second mark. Keaton Wallace, he finally hit a field goal for the Atlanta Hawks, the first score since Zachary Rizzet's 3 at 6 minute 8 second mark. Keaton Wallace hit a 3-point shot, 3 minute 11 second mark, 51-38. Wolves over the Hawks. Rudy Gobert answered back seconds later as offense would happen spurts for both teams. 53-38 in this game. First quarter, there's second quarter. DeAndre Hunter, he had a 3-point shot at the 2 minute 47 second mark in the second quarter. His 11th point already. 53-41. Going to pause really quick for some station identification. This is the BOS Sports Podcast. So, DeAndre Hunter, he had 13 first half points. He scored his 11th point, just mentioned a second ago, with his 3-point shot, the 2 minute 47 second mark. Julius Randle, he answered back seconds later at 2 minute 24 second mark with his 11 point. 55-41, Wolves over the Hawks. At the 1 minute 55 second mark, Hawks got their last score of the half. DeAndre Hunter's 13th point. They're at the 1 minute 55 second mark. 55-43, Wolves over the Hawks. Aforementioned, another 2 minute spell where the Hawks did not score. Nearly 2 minutes. As that would be the Hawks' last score of the half. They're at the 1 minute 55 second mark of the second quarter. At the 56 second mark, the Wolves got Ant jumper and a Julius Randle 3 as well at 13 second mark as the Wolves got a monstrous lead, 17-point lead at halftime, 60-43. The Wolves were handedly outshooting the Hawks at that point as they exploded a little bit on offense in the second quarter. As at that point, their field goal percentage was 45.8% compared to the Atlanta Hawks, 35.4%. Both teams upticked that from the first quarter, where they had the 36% for the Wolves and 29.6% for the Hawks. The Wolves are still winning the rebound battle fairly handedly, 32-25. And as well, at that point, they were winning the turnover margin 5-8. The Hawks had 5 second quarter turnovers compared to the Wolves 3. Yes, that'd be. And so Naz Reid, he had 13 points in the first half, 13 of his 15 all in that first half, 5 for 5 shooting from the field. Perfect day so far from Naz Reid in the first half, 3 for 3 from 3-point land. Julius Randle, he had 14 points, 14 of his 20 in the first half, 4 rebounds, 5 for 8 shooting from the field. Rudy Gobert, 10 points in the first half, 5 rebounds, 4 for 6 shooting from the field. All dunks, as all of his field goals today were all dunks. Anthony Edwards, 3 for 9 from field, 1 for 6, 3-point land, 2 steals in the first half for Anthony Edwards. Keaton Wallace, he had 10 points in the first half, 3 for 8 shooting from field, 37.5%. 2 for 6 from 3-point land for Keaton Wallace, 33.3%. DeAndre Hunter, he had 13 of his 35 points, as we mentioned just a second ago. He's shooting 55.6% from field in the first half, 5 for 9. And 2 for 3, good for 2/3 there from 3-point land in the first half. So the third quarter of this game opened with a lob score. And about half minute later, Keaton Wallace, around the 10 minute 42 second mark, he got a 3-point shot, putting the Hawks deficit to 12, 60-48. Wolves over the Hawks. Onyeka Nkagwu, he got to the free throw line at the 10-minute, 8-second mark. Hit both. Zachary Rizachet, he got a free throw as well. Takes one out to 60 to 50 Wolves over the Hawks. But Ant answers back at 9-minute, 37-second mark with an and one dunk. His 13th and 14th point out of his 23-point performance today. 65 to 50 Wolves. 8-minute, 35-second mark on Onyeka Nkagwu. He had a runner and had a 3-point shot just half a minute later. A 6-point, Keaton Wallace's 4th assist. As Keaton Wallace had 7 assists on a day compared to 3 turnovers. Pretty decent, a little bit over 2-1. Zachary Rizachet, he hit his second 3-point shot there at the 7-minute, 31-second mark. His 11th point, as that would be the final time he scored in this game. And as well, it cut the Wolves' lead into single digits, 66 to 58 Wolves. As the Hawks, they've cut to single digits several times in the second half, and certainly threatened this Wolves team. But the Wolves, they just had a little bit too much firepower, even with the Atlanta Hawks' nice defensive efforts. As Jaden McDaniels, he answered right back after that Rizachet 3 in the third quarter. 7-minute, 11-second mark with 3 of his own, putting the Wolves back up by 11, 69 to 58 Wolves. The Hawks, they went on a nice, decent run the rest of the third quarter as the Timberwolves struggled to score. In the last 7 minutes of the game, of the third quarter, the Timberwolves only scored 11 points. The Hawks outdid that a little bit, scoring 16 points, with DeAndre Hunter having 11 points within that time span, including a highlight dunk at the 3-second mark. Harrison Matthews as well, he had a 3 at the 52nd mark, putting the Hawks back within single digits, 77 to 70 Wolves over Hawks. But Anthony Edwards answered right back with a 3 of his own, 33-second mark. And then DeAndre Hunter, aforementioned, at the 3-second mark, got a highlight reel dunk and hit a couple free throws half a minute later. As third quarter ended with the Wolves lead of 6 points, 80 to 74. DeAndre Hunter, he already had 24 of his 35 points, as he scored 11 points in both the third and fourth quarter. The fourth quarter opened with a Naz Reid bucket, his 15th point and final point of the day, as he would leave a few minutes later around the 7-minute, 15-second mark with a worrisome shoulder injury, but he returned aforementioned, and hopefully he's going to be okay. For the Wolves as well, he's in a contract year, so he'll be a free agent this offseason. 10-minute, 37-second mark, Julius Randle, he had a 3-point shot, 87-76, Wolves back up by 11, double digits. 10-minute, 10-second mark, Julius Randle, he had a put-back layup dunk off offensive rebound. The second offensive rebound for the Wolves in that possession. And got an and one off that play. 89 to 76, Wolves over the Hawks. Hawks called a timeout. Things were not looking good for the Hawks. The Hawks would only score 14 points the rest of the game. It's a little bit better than the Timberwolves. They'd score 11 points the rest of the game. Few highlights from those scores. Rudy Gobert dunk. Clint Capella put back layup, getting an offensive rebound on the way to his double-double. Nice day for Clint Capella Day. 92 to 78 Wolves, up by 14. Aforementioned, Naz Reid, he left at the 7-minute, 15-second mark. And even more worrisome for the Timberwolves at this point is injury to Nickeil Alexander-Walker that happened just seconds later. He appeared to suffer a very worrisome knee injury for the Minnesota Timberwolves and had to be helped off to the court. I hate to see injuries, especially after what happened to the Atlanta Hawks last week. And we're still reeling from that and potentially figuring out where the franchise is going to go from here. All based on what the news is to Jalen Johnson. Just to get into that for a second, the Atlanta Hawks have not given an official injury update on Jalen Johnson. The last time we had a similar situation, it was a little bit fearsome and worrisome take on my part, is with Kobe Buffkin. And then he was out, and of course, it was a much more dramatic situation with Jalen Johnson leaving in that game and leaving the way he did. But we didn't get any update on Kobe Buffkin until they told us afterwards he had surgery. And I fear at this point, with no update having happened since that injury on Thursday, I fear that might be the situation at this point with Jalen Johnson. Hopefully not. So back to this game here. He had a bucket, cutting the Wolves' lead back to single digits, 94-86 Wolves at that point. DeAndre Hunter, he had a jumper, keeping the Wolves' lead single digits, 95-88 at that point. But Rudy Gobert, he answered back with putback dunk, as the Atlanta Hawks would really struggle the rest of the game, only scoring 4 points the rest of the game for the last 5 minutes. It's an ugly game. Aforementioned, it's back-to-back. Got some injuries. Dyson was out. Trae Young was out. Tomorrow night, playing on TNT versus the Houston Rockets, who just had a game tonight as well. They'll be on a back-to-back as well after they narrowly beat the Boston Celtics. I believe 114-112 was the final score of that game. They won by 2 points in a tightly contested game. Boston Celtics, go figure, as Bob Rathbun in this game suggested they're bored and looking forward to the playoffs. My take might be that they might be tanking for Rocco Zikarsky. He's a nice centerpiece. They're listed to potentially be in the rounds, the 20s. And the Celtics, they could potentially combine draft picks and trade up for Rocco Zikarsky, a potential replacement for Kristaps Porzingis. Of course, he would take a couple years. Kristaps Porzingis is contracted beyond this year, so that would work out there for the Celtics. A lot of speculation. Ask them that online. I don't think they'll reply to that. So, looking at this Atlanta Hawks team, what should we do from here? And Clint Capella, he had a nice night. Of course, he's in a contract year. And unfortunately, that means that he is a candidate to potentially be traded. As well, Bogdan Bogdanovic, he was a DNP tonight, did not play. There's no injury reported, so there might already be a trade in progress with Bogdan Bogdanovic. And that would actually make a lot of sense with his inconsistencies this year. Last year, he did play above 70 games, although in past years, he's had some durability problems and had a little bit of durability problems this year, although more consistency problems than durability. But he would be an interesting trade piece for any contender as a nice shooter when he's healthy. And he was a DNP tonight. It's likely due to injury, unlikely due to potential of him being traded. Of course, they're facing the Houston Rockets tomorrow night, a team that could potentially use a Bogdan Bogdanovic in a trade. And Bogey, he's making, I believe, $16.5 million this year, 16-17. So the Rockets, they have some cap room. It might be a retainment situation. Of course, being under the first apron, they do not have to 100% salary match, and they can take a retainment from the Atlanta Hawks. And Hawks would like to move up and secure better positioning in this NBA draft with several interesting names. And the Atlanta Hawks payroll not going down very much this offseason, as it's projected to be just about where it is right now next season due to Jalen Johnson, Trae Young, and other stars' contracts rising. So Bogdan Bogdanovic would be an interesting offload for the Atlanta Hawks. Get rid of his contract. Hopefully get a first-round draft pick in return from a team like the Houston Rockets. Should be a late first-round draft pick. Clint Capella, aforementioned, he's in a contract year, although he'd also be a candidate for the Atlanta Hawks to potentially sign with bird rights. Of course, is an exception for the Hawks to sign a player over the first apron for Atlanta Hawks to completely reload next year and have a bulky, bona fide contending team, NBA championship contending team. Although that's a bit hard to imagine with what the Atlanta Hawks roster looks like now and what they've looked like the last 10 games. After going on that nice, I believe it was 4-game winning streak, thanks things have just completely fallen apart with all the injuries. And we're waiting to hear the status of Jalen Johnson, as that will determine much of this. As if the worst case scenario with his shoulder injury, he's not going to be the same until sometime next season. And so the Atlanta Hawks, they might look at more aggressive trade moves and looking to rebuild for the 2026 and 2027 season. That's just painful to potentially even think about. Could not even go there in the last podcast, but that is a potential at this point. We really don't know. Aforementioned last podcast, injuries to his left shooting shoulder, so likely we'll see Jalen Johnson come back 100%. This should not be a career-altering injury for Jalen Johnson. So, going back to Clint Capella, all of my previous candidates for Clint Capella no longer make sense. As Steven Adams for the Houston Rockets, he's come on strong after coming back from injury himself. I believe it's torn ACL. He came back from that and is now starting to look strong for the Houston Rockets. They no longer really need a backup center. The Golden State Warriors, they've completely fallen off, and they're looking at rebuilding. Although, if they wanted to go for it this year, a center like Clint Capella would certainly help from. I was looking earlier at other possibilities, and no other teams really have payroll flexibility. The only team with any payroll flexibility where this might make sense, where they could use a center, is Dallas Mavericks, and they could use more depth at center, having Daniel Gafford. Dwight Powell is currently having a tough year and currently injured. That might be a bit of a hurdle as well. But the Dallas Mavericks, they're about $1 million under the first apron, according to the projection I looked at. And they could potentially put together a package for the Atlanta Hawks. It would require a high retainment of Clint Capella's salary by the Atlanta Hawks, and the Mavericks could combine a couple salaries, such as Dwight Powell and Markieff Morris, and use the NBA salary exception available for teams under the first apron to combine their salary and receive up salary and trade back up to 200% plus $250,000, which the combined salaries of Dwight Powell and Markieff Morris would be just over $6 million, $6.08 million, just over that. Combine up to $12.42 million of Clint Capella's 22 to 2024 salary. Now, this is where things get a little bit more dicey, is the Mavericks don't have very many draft picks as well. They only have 3 draft picks until 2031. But they might be looking at going all out with this roster, as Kyrie Irving, he has a player option after the end of this year. What are the Dallas Mavericks are going to do with this Luka Doncic? They might need to go for it this year. With the West being such a toss-up, that's a potential option for the Mavericks to look at. And their core with Kyrie Irving potentially no longer existing after this year. You never know what Kyrie's going to do. So the Mavericks want to go for it. Adding a center like Clint Capella would certainly help for them. He would give them a lengthy defender, having that 7'5" wingspan, lob threat, and pick and roll. You can pair it with Kyrie or Luka Doncic when the other player's resting as well. Nice depth with Daniel Gafford there. Rotation at center. And so the picks the Mavs have are the 25 and 2026 first-round draft picks, and 2025 second-round draft pick of Denver, or the lesser draft pick of Philadelphia or Denver. So they really do not have very much to offer. Looking at that, you'd want no less than one of those first-round draft picks and that second-round draft pick, if not 2. There's really not a Clint Capella. I mean, there's nice front court players in this game. Asa Newell and Kaman Malik, Brian Kalkbrenner, as we've discussed, a possibility for Atlanta Hawks. And Derek Queen. There's a lot of nice front court players, nice centers, nice power forward center type players like Asa Newell. But no guarantee they'll translate in the NBA as well as Clint Capella plays. No matter how good they look in college, there's always a possibility for things to go differently in the NBA. So tough trading Clint Capella for draft picks, especially anything less than 2 first-round draft picks, which the Mavs that would max out what they can offer. The Mavs would be done for the rest of the decade. They could re-sign Clint Capella with bird rights, and that would be their roster for the rest of the decade. Maybe one more shot next year with Kyrie Irving, with Luka Doncic. Pretty hairy. So really, there's not many great trade possibilities with Clint Capella. There might be some more hope with Bogdanovich. We'll keep breaking down and keep track of these possibilities going forward as well. In future episodes, we'll start looking a little bit more at these draft prospects. It's been about a month since we did a segment looking at Derek Queen, Cayman Mollett, Brian Kalkbrenner, and Rocco Zikarsky, other names, front court at center position, we're looking at for Atlanta Hawks eventually draft. Now the Atlanta Hawks, they're looking at potentially filling multiple holes. If you trade Bogdanovich, you might want to draft someone like Liam McNeely to replace that production. Although Garrison Matthews has been producing as well, Pete Krejci has stepped up for Atlanta Hawks. They might not need to draft a wing player to replace that production. So we're going to pause here for station identification before we're getting into Dyson Daniels and a little bit from Saturday night's game. This is the BOS Sports Podcast. So Dyson Daniels, who's out tonight for the Atlanta Hawks, is having career highs in a breakout season for Atlanta Hawks, and he is the league leader this season in steals with 3.1 per game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, leading MVP candidate, along with Nikola Jokic, is second in that stat category in the league, with 2 assists per game. 2 steals per game. Dyson Daniels is averaging career highs as well. Points per game at 13.5 per game. Field goal percentage at 46.9%. Rebounds 5.2 per game. Assists 3.6 per game. At the half-point mark in the NBA season, which happened after last game, we're now 1 game past the halfway point with the Atlanta Hawks playing their... might be incorrect about that. This is their 45th game. So that passed a couple days ago. It was reported that he worked with, he's already made, Dyson Daniels, past the halfway point NBA season, has already made a career high in 3-pointers made. It was reported that he worked with Kyle Korver and the Atlanta Hawks development staff over the summer through various outlets prior to the Olympics, where he saw good success with Australian team over 4 tournament games, averaging 8.5 points per game in 26.7 minutes, 5 rebounds, 1.5 steals per game, 48.1% shooting from the field, 38.5% shooting from three-point land. Dyson Daniels is still developing. I don't think we've seen the peak of his prime. I think his three-point shot is going to continue to uptick closer to where it was in those 4 games in the Olympics. I think Dyson is a little bit finding his spots, and aforementioned, like him to be more flexible and more successful hitting that corner three-point shot. But his shot form, the way he shoots the basketball, he might need to look a little bit more at those buckles that he tends to like to shoot around and has better success. I believe he's a little bit looking for his shots there beyond their arc, his spots there, his hot spots. As well, I think his shooting in the lane starts to translate better success at the free throw line. He's been seeing a career low in free throw shooting, with 56.7% shooting from free throw line. I also see him refining his decision-making and balancing shot selection, being aggressive with being a playmaker. as we see him be relied on a bit more in a playmaking role and even playing some point guard with injury to Kobe Buffkin, and he's done a good job so far. So, as well, and these video clips are about to roll in just a second. Vit Krejci, he's on a hot streak. His last 5 games coming in tonight, he was 16 for 32. Tonight, he cooled off a little bit, going 0 for 4 tonight. So, all good things come to an end, as they say. So, this was Saturday night's game versus the Raptors. As Vit Krejci was averaging 39.2% from three-point land coming into that, 6.4 points per game, 43.6%. So these segments going to talk a little bit about Dyson Daniels' play in that Saturday night game, and as well Vit Krejci's nice three-point hot streak. Caught 4 of his 6 three-point shots made there in that game, there in that first half in these video clips. Check this out. Before we get to Dyson, this is what it's like to go to the game opening introductions with the Georgia Natural Gas Flamethrower. You can feel that thing from your seat. All right, getting into Dyson Daniels. There he is on the graphic screen there. Here we go. He starts out with a nice pick and roll play with Onyeka and Kagwu. Onyeka sets the pick. Passes to Onyeka in the lane, basket. A nice floater there. Dyson, very aggressive here. Drive to the basket, missed it. Too many passes here. The Hawks get it back off the Larry Nance miss, offensive rebound. And passes to Onyeka, to Vit, to Bogey. And then over to Dyson Daniels in the corner. He should have shot there, but he passed again, resulting in turnover. And nice drive here by Dyson. The Hawks, this is their first game without Jalen Johnson out. They're kind of reeling, figuring out different things to do on offense. Here, Onyeka on Kagwu, he had a drive in the lane as Larry Nance Jr. set an off-ball screen for Vit Krejci. He liked to take a shot as Vit was absolutely on fire in this game. He had 6 three-point shots, 4 in the first half. I happened to record all 4 of them. There's his first. Here comes his second here. Drive, kick, Larry Nance. Screen, Larry Nance. Shot. Vit Krejci gets to the spot. It's down the three-point shot there. Here comes Vit again. Gets to the spot right there. And here he is again. They let him wide open. Mistake. Tough fought game from Atlanta Hawks Saturday night. Unfortunately, they fell to the Toronto Raptors. Here's some more game action from Saturday night's game. So after I mentioned, the Hawks trying to figure out their offense with Jalen Johnson out, Zachary Reed-Shea out, as well DeAndre Hunter was out this game. He comes Trey on a drive. He tries to lob it to Clint Capella. Clint did not quite get there. Maybe a bit of miscommunication. Turnover. The Raptors get fouled on the other end. So here comes the next play. The Hawks inbound it. And Trae Young's going to bring up the floor. Get a nice fast break opportunity. Try to dish it to Clint Capella in the lane. The ball slips out. And Trae gets it back. Nice floaty shot. Gets the basket. So here comes Dyson Daniels bringing the ball up the floor. We see him play some point guard with Kobe Buffkin out for the rest of the season. Pass on Onyeka and Kagwu. Screen for Garrison Matthews. Three-pointer. Bang. Down. Good to see Garrison Matthews hit a three-point shot after struggling a bit for last week. Another play. Vit Krejci bringing the ball up the floor. He plays some point guard as well. Another screen play for Garrison Matthews. That one's off. So here comes Bogey on the drive. He's going to get blocked on a shot, get the ball back, pass it to Vit Krejci here in the corner. He's going to swing around to Dyson. Like to see Dyson make the shot. Fortunately, that's his spot. Like to see him hit those. Here comes Dyson bringing the ball up the floor. Again. Swings around to Larry Nance Jr. in the corner. Vit Krejci here on the three-point line. Back to Larry Nance in the post. It's going to be a 24-shot violation. Larry Nance, you got to get the ball up there and take a shot. And another Hawks turnover. The Hawks would have 22 turnovers in this game. Here's another one. Ugh. Dyson stepping out of bounds and the pass to the corner. Here comes Dyson again. Bring the ball up the floor. Trae Young the game. Pass to Larry Nance. Good screen there. Drives it in the lane. Pass Onyeka Okongwu in the corner. Hits the three-point shot. Onyeka's been more solid from three recently. Good to see. Trae Young, interesting. Here we go. Last play of the first half for the Atlanta Hawks. 22 seconds left. Trae is inbounding it. Baseline. Beat Krejci's going to come off a screen set by Dyson Daniels. Swell runs into Portal there. But Dyson Daniels, he's fouled. They're in the lane. Loose ball foul. So, it's been a tough week for Atlanta Hawks. Things are not going to be getting easier. After I mentioned, they got tomorrow night's game versus the Rockets, Thursday versus the Cavaliers, Saturday night versus the Pacers, Monday again versus the Pistons, and Spurs, Bucks, Wizards, Magic. All games are going to be looking pretty tough. The Hawks continue to be without Jalen Johnson. So we're going to transition here and do a little bit of Braves here. As the last podcast from Thursday, I'm going to talk a bit about Jerks and Profar, and of course, things got sidetracked with the Jalen Johnson injury. So Jerks and Profar, he was born in the sport of baseball. His father was a former professional player as well, and certainly contribute to the player Jerks and Profar is today. As reported by MLB.com, Mark Bowman, the beat writer for Atlanta Braves, Jerks and Profar was a big Braves fan growing up in Curacao. As quoted in Mark's article from the past weekend as saying every Wednesday they were putting the Braves games on TV in Curacao. Be interesting to ask further what the circumstances were around that. Felt like it raised a little bit more questions that didn't answer. Why every Wednesday? Why not every game? Mark mentioned as well the other Atlanta Braves baseball players, Jar Jurgens, Andrelton Simmons, that come from Curacao, along with, of course, legend Andrew Jones. He should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame. It was a shame that he didn't make it this year. He should absolutely be in next year, or else. So Kenley Jansen, he's also from Curacao. He was with the Braves in 2023. Ozzy Albies as well, current member of the Atlanta Braves from Curacao. Be interesting to find out how all of them watch the Braves. Of course, the Braves were on TVS for a long time. I believe many of them watched Andrew Jones from Jerks and Profar, Kenley Jansen, Ozzy Albies, they all talk about him, Andrelton Simmons. So Profar, he started with the Texas Rangers as an international free agent in 2019, 16 years old. His initial professional season was in 2010 with the Spokane Indians, where he batted .250 with 4 home runs. By 2011, he was playing for the Hickory Crawdads, earning accolades, the South Atlantic League's most valuable player, with a .286 average, .390 OBP, .493 slugging percentage. Those are about his professional numbers from last year. So we're very excited for Jerks and Profar to be the everyday left field. We get a sure, bona fide hitter there in left field, in contrast to potentially relying on Jared Kelenic, who's not quite made his mark in the MLB so far. Hopefully he does when Raj is out, as Jared Kelenic, he will be starting in the outfield until Ronald Acuna Jr. returns. So his major league debut came with the Texas Rangers, Jerks and Profar. That is September 2nd, 2012, during the old roster expansion rules. He became the first player born in 1993 to play in the majors. So pretty interesting. He hit a home run in his first at-bat. Although his early MLB career was marked by limited playing time due to depth of the Rangers infield. That was during He was a utility player at that time. Of course, that was in the Rangers championship run seasons there with Ron Washington at head coach, previous third base coach for Atlanta Braves, currently with the Angels. Jurickson Profar's 2013 season, he played in 85 games with .234 batting average. He had a shoulder injury in 2014, which sidelined him for an entire 14 and 2015 season. He went through surgery and rehabilitation. I don't even want to go there with the Hawks. So, Jurickson Profar, he returned to the majors in 2016, initially playing sporadically for the Rangers. His versatility across infield and outfield positions was a significant asset, but consistent performance was elusive due to health and opportunity issues. Jurickson Profar was initially later traded to the Oakland Athletics in 2019. He got a more regular role. I believe he played with Matt Olson and maybe Sean Murphy as well. Former Athletics are now Braves. I believe he did play with Olson. However, at the time, it was a challenging year as he's traded to the Padres shortly after. And that's where he really started to make his mark, his niche as a Major League player, as he earned All-Star selection, Silver Slugger, after being re-signed by the San Diego Padres last offseason after being a free agent. He signed a one-year deal. He had a monster year for the Padres, hitting 24 home runs, 85 RBIs with a .280 average. That would be just beautiful to add to the Atlanta Braves lineup there. Before we continue this segment, I'm going to pause for a quick station identification. This is the BOS Sports Podcast. So after that one-year deal with the Padres and having that nice season, he earned a nice 3-year contract with the Atlanta Braves, $12 million first year and $15 million next 2 years. So hopefully he continues and has a nice year for the Braves. There's been some concerns about his glove and defense there in left field for the Braves. It's certainly a short outfield there. He won't have to cover much room there. We saw him last year as well make that highlight play, robbing the home run there in the Dodgers Stadium. He'll have similar opportunities there with the bullpen wall there in the left field of Truist Park. As well, we look for him to be a little bit contact hitter and improving the Braves' on-base percentage as well. So the Braves, they still need pitching now. After they signed Jurickson Profar, we've now upgraded our position players and our offense, our lineup. We now need to look at pitching as options to improve elsewhere, such as shortstop, are now only in the trade market. For the Atlanta Braves, there's not really any way I can see the Atlanta Braves proving position player-wise in free agency unless Alex Bregman can still play shortstop, which Astros fans, the other space-related thing. Astros fans say that Bregman can't play shortstop anymore, so not even rumored to be for the Braves. So the only frontier left for the Braves to improve is pitching this offseason. Jack Flaherty is still available. He'd be nice to add for the Braves. We don't have to rely on prospects. As well, last year, both Chris Sale and Reynaldo Lopez, they both need extra days of rest in spring. If that's true, we'll need a 6-man rotation. But the Braves are likely relying on names such as Ian Anderson coming back from Tommy John. Be an impact there. Of course, A.J. Smith, Schauber, Hurston Waldrop, they're already on the 40-man roster. room could be made for a player like Drew Hackenberg. They got some options there. Just with the cost of how much pitching was at last trade deadline, it's nice to sign what you need now, opposed to having to wait later and trade a bunch of players at the deadline, which the Braves might have to do if they need a starter for the playoff rotation at deadline. So we're right now realistically just looking at relievers, which kind of, yeah. So online, Kevin Keneally, internet sports personality, gave a short list of pitchers. I'll look some of them up. Tyler Keneally, a changeup thrower. A flame changeup thrower. That makes sense. With a nice fastball, low to mid to low 90s. Sub-3 ERA last 3 seasons with the Yankees, including a 2.11 ERA. It'd certainly be a different look for the Atlanta Braves there, out of the bullpen. Changeup thrower. Danny Colm, he's a cutter thrower from the left side. Sinker, a sweeper, sinker, curve mix. Not dissimilar, not entirely dissimilar. A little bit similar to Jesse Chavez, but from the left side. Maybe an interesting different look for the Braves. Luis Garcia, upper 90s sinker ball thrower with a scary 42.3% hard hit rate on his cutter, which translated to 4.88 ERA last season. His splitter as well didn't fare very well with a 36.8%. There are several of these possibilities I just don't like unless they're signed with somebody else. I'd throw Andrew Chafin in that category as well. And potentially like to see the Braves sign him, but with someone else. Of course, they're going to be trying out different arms out of the bullpen. Ryan Stanek, he upper 90s velo with some command issues, with some extension issues, which Rick Krantz might be able to assist with. Of course, he'll be teammates as well as Spencer Strider, the king of extension. And was reported by Mark Bowman as possibilities. The Cubs, they just traded for Ryan Presley of the Astros the other day. So Ryan Stanton might be a possibility for the Braves. Kyle Finnegan, a very enticing possibility, free agent, as a reliever, national closer with a high velo, mid-upper 90s, splitter, slider, his Monday pitches, though. Command, a little bit rough at times. It's going into his 6th season. As long as he stays healthy, I believe his command will continue in Kyle Finnegan's trajectory as a reliever, and his success will continue upwards. Jalen Beeks, decent option for left side. Mid-90s fastball, change cutter curve. Austin Voth, cutter with a nice 26.6 low hard hit rate. Huge curveball. Well, with Austin Voth with a 47.7% low 90s fastball. So the Braves, they have about $10.6 million in cap room under the first luxury tax tier, according to some projections. And it's speculated that the Atlanta Hawks are looking to reset going into next season. The luxury tax penalties, as after 3 years, they increase. So that would give us enough to sign a nice reliever, such as Ryan Stain, but more exciting names like Kyle Finnegan, as probably going to be priced out of the range. I'd like the Braves to sign a couple of relievers. The Braves currently have a full 40-man roster, though, but that will change shortly, as after February 14th, when the pitchers and catchers are able to report, the teams are then become eligible to instate players on the 68-day IL, removing their spot from the 40-day roster. And of course, unfortunately, that's going to happen with Joe Jimenez, who's announced for being out the entire 2025 season with injury. So after pitchers and catchers report the 14th, Joe Jimenez can be placed on a 60-man roster, hopefully making room for a player that's pending to be put on it, because they were already signed at that point, such as Ryan Stanek. So, as well, Ronald Acuna Jr., his progress is reported to be going very well. So it seems unlikely that he'll be placed on the 60-day IL, which does not start until opening day. They can be placed on the 60-day IL after pitchers and catchers report, but that count does not open for the start until opening day. And unfortunately, that might apply and be something the Braves might use for Spencer Strider. Although I think they might wait until a bit later in spring training when things become a bit more clear on his recovery, opposed to putting him on 60-day IL right after pitchers and catchers report. It's a possibility. There's been speculations he might be out until the summer. In that case, it makes sense for the Braves to put Spencer Strider on that 60-day IL after pitchers and catchers report. They expect him not to be back until June. In that case, they better sign Jack Flaherty. All right, anyways. With all the starting pitchers and prospects the Braves have on the doorstep in majors, Hurston Waldrop, Drew Hackenberg, A.J. Smith-Shawver, and right behind them, Ian Mejia and Juan Carlos Lara, also in the mix. Ian Mejia, he's already in AAA Gwinnett, seeing varying success. He might be a trade candidate. He might be a candidate to pitch out of the bullpen, depending on what goes on with the Braves the rest of the way. Hayden Harris, he's a Braves prospect, knocking on the doorstep in AAA as well. He features an invisible fastball as left-hand pitcher. The Braves only have two lefties, of course, with Bummer and the injury with A.J. Minter signing elsewhere. Angel Perdomo will come back, and he'll be another pitcher coming from left side for the Atlanta Braves. They're available out of the bullpen. So Hayden Harris, who's prospect, another option left side for Braves coming in last season. He's got that invisible fastball, somewhat similar to Paul Sewald's fastball. It's got a high spin rate and a little bit rising, kind of tailing action there. Tough for hitters to square up, tough for hitters to get on top of and top of baseball, make contact with. He's knocking on the door of the Braves. Let's see if he has an impact there for the Braves this season. He's got ERA above 4 for the AAA Gwinnett. We don't always see those ERA translate as well. We'll see how his spring training goes there for Hayden Harris. So another option aforementioned left side, Jose Perdomo, coming off recovering from Tommy John season. He missed all 2024 after having the fall surgery in fall last year. Be another high velo option out of the pen, being a mid to upper 90s thrower before his injury. So hopefully he returns to that for the Braves. Of course, we saw Tyler Maxick. He came back from all those Tommy Johns for the Braves. Hopefully Angel Perdomo has a similar trajectory. In addition, Dylan Dodd. We saw him that one appearance, I believe it was in 2023, August 2023. Braves tried Dylan Dodd there, and he was throwing mid-upper 90s there, that one game. Now, people will listen to me and think, whoa, he throws low 90s. Yeah, he mostly throws low 90s. I don't know. Try him out in the bullpen. Like to try Dylan Dodd out in the bullpen before the Braves move on from him. So the Braves system's a bit clogged with pitchers right now, depending on who's given up. Dylan Cease has been talked in trade talks, and it is, of course, you can always sign Jack Flaherty. You have some concerns of how heavily he's used in last year's Dodgers championship run. He makes all these posts on social media, does Jack Flaherty. But what I see from the outside is the Dodgers paid him the salary from last year or whatever was agreed on between the Tigers. And now he doesn't have a contract. They're not paying him. And they potentially compromise the health of his arm, being used so heavily in that postseason. So I'm not sure why he's so high on the Dodgers at this point, especially with them being projected to still sign Clayton Kershaw. I likely see Jack Flaherty land somewhere else. So for the Braves, they've been rumored in contention for Dylan Cease. Depending on what's given up for him makes some sense with the pitching system being so clogged with so many prospects. Braves are blessed with plenty of pitching prospects. Only problem is they picked the wrong one, and it could potentially look very bad, potentially hurt down the road, especially if other guys that you're higher on do not work out. But it's hard for the Padres to see them asking for too much less than what the White Sox won. They supposedly won a combination of A.J. Smith-Shawver and Hurston Waldrop last offseason for Dylan Cease before the White Sox traded him to the Padres. and I think they'd want still one of those prospects. The Padres traded 3 top 10 prospects to the White Sox last offseason for Dylan Cease. Just wrote that the Braves could send a batch of lower-rated pitching prospects who are right behind them listed. You get some combination of a player like J.R. Ritchie, Owen Murphy with David McCabe, and then pair him with someone like Dylan Dodd and Ian Mejia. That'd be a nice package there for the Padres. They might want a little bit more. Get J.R. Ritchie if you're the Padres. That's a top 10 prospect, likely to be a major league pitcher one day. He had nice numbers there last year in the minor leagues. Very nice numbers across short sample sizes. Ian Mejia, he's a lengthy, tall pitcher who potentially be useful in the major leagues this year. You have David McCabe, who had very nice numbers before he got injured, and since returning from his injury, he's not had very nice numbers. But he'd be position player depth, and the Padres would be able to recap a bit of the prospects and a bit of the organizational depth that they lost in both the Dylan Cease and Tanner Scott trades last season. I'm thinking that they probably want a little bit more than that package I just made up there. So maybe something like Owen Murphy and J.R. Ritchie with Dylan Dodd and Mejia. Or maybe swap out one of those players in the 10 to 20 rankings with David McCabe, putting a position player there. I think they want quite a lot. We'll see if Dylan Cease is traded, what's given up, and how close these projections are going forward. So, looking forward, the aforementioned, the Atlanta Braves, are they trying to reset the tax bracket for next season? To reset the penalties? Well, that does not quite make sense from a baseball standpoint, although it's been speculated that the Braves could be up for sale and pending a sale soon, as one of the reasons that they're trying to shed salary and stay under that first luxury tax. It's been also speculated that the Braves ownership is just simply cheap and they want to make more money, not having to deal with those luxury tax penalties. The third, and I think even less likely potential, is the Braves are unloading salary to try to sign a heavy free agent next offseason. The 25 to 2026 class, free agent class in MLB, is not quite loaded. Of course, it's headlined by the perennial All-Star and MVP and sometimes MVP candidate as well, Vladimir Guerrero. The Braves do not participate in top free agent player bidding war. As well, Marcell Ozuna will be also available. Of course, Marcell, he had a much nicer season last season than Vladdy Guerrero Jr. did, although in different circumstances. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that Toronto lineup last year was just entirely awful. No protection for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's not impossible to fathom if you were to swap him, Marcell Ozuna, maybe their numbers would swap as well. So it's consideration, but as well, the Braves, for what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be paid next offseason, it just makes it even further unlikely the Braves, with how frugal they act in free agency, would be interesting in bringing him as a DH for what his huge contract's going to be. You know, if they're given the option between signing Marcell Ozuna for a decent deal and for probably what would be an 8-figure deal as opposed to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. deal, which is going to be over $100 million, 9-figure deal. You know that Braves cheap ownership, they're going to cheap out every time. So it'd be an interesting ad, and at this point, it doesn't even quite make sense for them to swap them out. Of course, Raisel Iglesias also be an unrestricted free agent next offseason, but the Braves will have to spend significantly on their bullpen next offseason, depending even on what they do this year. But that's usually not a huge concern cap-wise. Oh, both Atlanta Hawks and Atlanta Braves. The Braves are a lot better off than the Hawks, of course. But there's been similarities and some questionable pieces, how things are going to go forward. And the Hawks, if the Braves could simply sign a couple of nice free agent relievers, not put themselves in a position to have to trade a bunch of prospects, 4 prospects like the Padres had to trade for Tanner Scott for half a season, 2 months, not even half a season. Braves need to acquire as much of their needs in the offseason right now, opposed to waiting at the deadline, because we know those costs are going to be very high. Trade costs are just going to be impossible. So back to Atlanta Hawks, aforementioned tomorrow night's game versus the Rockets, 7:30 State Farm Arena makeup game. It's on TNT. For better or worse. Then the Hawks will play the Cavs Thursday, Pacers Saturday. Next BOS Sports Podcast will either be Thursday night or Saturday night. Undecided yet, to be determined after either the Cavs or the Hawks-Pacers game. Ugh. So thanks for streaming this episode. Be sure to stream previous episodes of the BOS Sports Podcast. Stream Bar Soap Music on Spotify. And we'll see you either Thursday or Saturday. Be sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, X. We'll post about when next episode's going to happen. Take care, everybody.